Welcome back. We are in the prayer system for the final time, dealing with a more organised Kalathi counter-offensive than the rather haphazard attempt to retake the jump point they managed immediately after we took it the first time. It's spearheaded by this destroyer, but
break and attack.
Watch and learn.
As you can see, the fighter escort is a bit under strength since it was mostly composed of Darkits throughout the mission. That said, I'm not entirely sure if you expect to encounter Excaliburs what your best option is as a Kalathi commander. The Bloodfang is the only Kalathi fighter which is really capable of duelling an Excalibur, but the Kalathi only are supposed to have one squadron of Bloodfangs and they are far too expensive for mass production. So, that being the case, what else do they have? The Straphill light out, its shields and armour are paper thin, and it barely stands up to one volley from the Excalibur's front guns. So, the cloaking device wouldn't be a sufficient advantage to offset that. Strackers go down really fast against Excaliburs. The Pactan is almost as useless. Outside of a fleet fence situation, there's nothing to prevent the Excalibur with its shelf slide just picking off the sidearm of the Pactan where they can't shoot back. In a fleet defence scenario where an Excalibur has to take risk, the Pactan's rear turret is a bit of a threat to them, but even then they would lose very heavily. The Asteroid Fighter is just a Pactan without the rear turret, so that's even worse. Then there's the Vaktoth. Well, the Vaktoth is basically terrible all around. It largely, I think, exists out of nostalgia in the sense that the Kalathi in previous games, their heavy fighter has been their best fighter. The Vaktoth is bad. People used to playing Wing Commander 3 on Nightmare, not on Nightmare, sorry, on Ace will disagree with me. But that is because the Vaktoths on Ace were the only fighters really allowed to use afterburners and were therefore rather better than the rest for that reason. On Nightmare, Vaktoths are pretty obviously the worst fighters they could have. That leaves Darkits and Drouthy. Well, those are the two fighters I encounter in this mission, and these are the only Drouthy, and as you're about to see, I have far more trouble with these than I have had with the Darkits. And the Drouthy are, in general, I think, the best Kalathi fighters. Maniac's distress call there, by the way, that wasn't him having trouble with the Drouthy particularly. That was traditional wingman lack of situational awareness. After you kill a first wave and there's a capital ship there, they will always go for the cap ship, and therefore they get shot up by the escort fighters. I didn't quite manage to kill the Darkits fast enough.
In the base.
Not possible, Ace.
That, on the other hand, is your Maniac. You can't make him go home because you won't obey orders. It doesn't matter that he wants to go home. If you order him to, he'll stay put. I would like to call this a bug, but actually it does seem pretty faithful to Maniac's character, to be honest. I'm not sure if Maniac or I got that last fighter there. I think Maniac's kill response happened before the fighter went down and it was responsible for the other fighter, but it's hard to tell. I gave him that kill in my accounting for the kills on the grounds that, well, you know, I had lots anyway. This next wave of Darkits is primarily challenging simply because I already know that Maniac's fighter is pretty shot up, and since he is at risk and has been for ages, my primary concern is to avoid getting him killed. It's also moderately challenging since I managed to do stupid things like think a fighter is going to turn around any time now and go head to head with me when it's actually chasing Maniac, which is where my armour just went.
Come on, let's get out of here.
So at this point, as I said, primarily concerned with dealing with fighters chasing Maniac, so that one and there will be one other, and it's probably this one because it's already taken some damage.
Come on, let's get out of here.
Now, it's unlikely that with me shooting at it, a Darkit can do any damage to an Excalibur, because the way in general that it would do so would be by firing a heat-seeking missile, and if it stays flying in a straight line long enough to lock on a heat seeker, my autocracker will find it and it will explode. This is in fact about to be demonstrated. Maniac is now retreating off his own back. He won't do it when I order him to, but he will occasionally just run away, which means he's flying in a straight line. The Darky can catch the Excalibur afterburner, but to do so it has to do that, and that's not very smart when there are other enemies around. But I quite like the fact that we managed to decoy the Darkits with one fighter and shoot them up with the other, because it's what the Kilrathi try to do to us all the time, so turning the tables on them is entertaining. Anyway, I'm quite glad Maniac decided to run away, because we have again a cruiser at this nav point, and much like in the previous mission, cruisers appear to be death on your wingmen when you're flying Excaliburs. I believe those two fighters collided with each other, in as much as there were two of them there and I couldn't possibly have destroyed both of them with that volley of cannon fire, so I'm guessing they decided to dodge into each other. Which happens just often enough to be entertaining, really. I assume that no one bothered to program collision avoidance into their evasions, and then sometimes they just start too close together. Anyway, that is all the fighters dealt with, so now it's just this cruiser to deal with. The Kilrathi Falthi 2 does have quite a lot of point defence firepower, as I commented last mission. And so, if you do what I suppose you were intended to do, and fly around like this, only maintaining the fighter pointed at the capital ship long enough to empty the gun banks, then you will eventually get tagged with an anti-matter gun or two, and it's quite difficult, as I'm about to prove. I will eventually realise that there is a far better way to do this, and no, I don't mean unloading the large pile of missiles that I have forgotten to use throughout this mission. It's quite difficult, I find, to work out when to use missiles in missions like this, because the instinct is to save missiles for when you actually really need them, when you're in trouble, but you're never in trouble in a mission like this because it's really pretty easy. And then you get to this final stage and you think, well, I should be using the missiles now, but it's a waste to use homing missiles on a capital ship. Despite the fact that I have no other enemies left, and it's probably arguably a waste to come back with missiles as well. Anyway, what I eventually remember, and I've almost remembered it now, is that the tail end near the engines doesn't have any guns covering it. So I can hang around to my heart's content around here, and if I can line myself up properly directly behind the engines, I can just match speed with the cruiser, and then all it is a matter of holding down the fire button. I am blaming the whole privateer hiatus for the fact that I got this initially, because basically it's quite embarrassing otherwise. I've also completely forgotten what the match speed key is. I'm pretty certain Wing Commander 3 does actually have one, but I, as you can see, don't remember what it is, so I have to do it the hard way. I've cut out the bit when I actually work out what speed to go at and just sit there firing for half a minute because I didn't think it was particularly entertaining. But anyway, that does conclude the mission. There are no more enemies, so thanks for watching. I've been Alanin, this has been Wing Commander 3 Heart of the Tiger.
Downtown Kilra, here we come. Clear to land, Colonel.
I don't quite get where the "we" is coming from here, Rollins. You're not going to Kilra, but yes, as Rollins says, join me next time when we'll be hitting the jump point to Kilra.